to the Chattable podcast, where we learn real English in real life and have fun and be proud.
It is really great to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited. So today we're heading to the slopes. We're talking about the Winter Olympics.
We are.
But for this episode, we aren't looking at the medal count or, the world records.
Yeah.
We're looking at the specific, really high-octane vocabulary that comes out of all that excitement.
That's right. Because the Olympics is this, it's a high-pressure, incredibly high visibility environment.
Definitely.
And the English that we use to describe it reflects that intensity. I mean, it is not everyday language. It is language on steroids.
Exactly. So we have pulled 3 very specific phrases from our sources today that capture visibility, high energy, and intense emotion.
Those are the 3 pillars of the games, really.
They really are. And the phrases are plastered, charging around, and adoring.
These are just fantastic examples of how English shifts when the stakes get really high.
So let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Our first stop is the word plaster. And we are looking at this through the lens of media saturation and high visibility.
Right.
Our context here from the source material is the Milan Winter Olympics, and specifically an athlete named Jordan Stolz.
Jordan Stolz is basically the name on everyone's lips for these games. I mean, he is the favorite for multiple medals.
And because he is the favorite, you literally cannot escape him.
No, you really can't.
So here is the exact sentence from our source. It says, Jordan Stolz was a favorite for multiple medals at Milan Winter Olympics, and NBC has plastered his face front and center on its Olympics coverage.
NBC has plastered his face.
Yeah.
It is such a visceral choice of a verb.
It really is. And, before we even analyze the media strategy side of things, I want to strip this back to the absolute literal meaning.
Let's do it.
Because when I hear the word plaster, I do not think of television broadcasts. I think of home renovation nightmare.
Oh, exactly. You think of the messy stuff.
Yes. For anyone who hasn't done a DIY project recently, plaster is that thick, heavy, wet paste, usually made of lime or gypsum.
Right, the stuff you use to coat walls and ceilings.
Exactly. It is heavy, it's usually gray or white, and it dries absolutely rock hard.
And think about the actual application process of plaster.
It's intense.
Right, because when you plaster a wall, you aren't just touching it up. You aren't just painting a little corner to hide a scratch.
No, you are coating the entire thing.
You are. You are taking a trowel and smoothing this incredibly thick material over every single square inch of the brick.
What?
Or the drywall.
You leave nothing exposed.
That is the key image here for our listener to hold on to. Total concealment.
Total concealment.
Yes. The entire goal of plastering a wall is to cover the surface underneath so completely that you cannot see the original structure anymore. It creates a brand new, perfectly smooth surface.
Almost a suffocating layer, in a way. Nothing gets through the plaster.
Precisely. Now, if you take that physical sensation, that thick, heavy total coverage, and you apply it to a media campaign.
So when we say NBC plastered his face on the coverage,
we are saying they have completely covered the metaphorical wall of the broadcast.
It implies a total lack of negative space, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests that everywhere you look, there is Jordan Stolz. You turn on the TV, Stolz.
You check the sports app, Stolz.
You look at a short bumper segment before a commercial, it's Stolz.
It feels very aggressive.
It is.
Like you would never say, oh, they plastered a nice little mention of him in the closing credits.
Never. That totally breaks the metaphor. Plastering is about domination of a space. It implies a really high volume of aggressive marketing that is simply impossible to ignore.
It's visual suffocation.
That is a perfect way to describe it to the listener. Visual suffocation. It's this idea that the entity in this case, the TV network, is forcing this image into your field of vision whether you ask for it or not.
It's interesting, though, because the word plastered can sometimes have a somewhat negative connotation in other contexts. Like if someone says a wall is plastered with mud, it means it's messy, or even being intoxicated. But here, it just emphasizes the sheer scale.
It emphasizes unavoidability. And this happens constantly in pop culture, not just in sports broadcasting.
Oh, sure.
Our source material actually gives a really great example involving Times Square.
Right. The Zendaya example. Let me read that one. Did you see Times Square yesterday? Apple plastered Zendaya's face all over the billboards for their new campaign.
Now, I want you to really visualize Times Square.
It is the definition of visual chaos.
Exactly. Flashing lights, ticker tapes, thousands of different colors, people everywhere.
It's complete sensory overload on a normal day.
So if a company like Apple plastered Zendaya's face there, what does that actually look like?
Well, it implies they bought every single screen. It's a complete takeover.
Exactly. It is no longer a chaotic mix of 100 different ads. It becomes a wallpaper made entirely of Zendaya.
A wallpaper made of Zendaya. That really drives home the definition. It's all about that repetition.
It is. It's about occupying every single available inch of the visual real estate.
We see this in the music industry, too. The source mentions the Taylor Swift Eras Tour.
A classic textbook case study in plastering.
The sentence from the source is, when Taylor Swift announced the Eras Tour, her posters were plastered on every bus stop in the city.
Again, think about your experience as a listener just walking through that city. You walk past a bus stop on your corner, there she is.
You cross the street to go down into a subway station, there she is.
You look up at a billboard on a building, there she is.
The city is literally covered in her image, just like that brick wall is covered in gypsum.
And notice how that specific word changes the feeling of the entire event.
What do you mean?
Well, if you just said there were posters of Taylor Swift, it sounds normal. Standard promotion, people put up posters.
Right. It's just a thing that happens. But plastered makes it feel like a phenomenon.
Yes.
It feels almost like an invasion.
Exactly. It conveys weight and magnitude. It tells you, the listener, this is huge and you cannot escape it.
So for you listening at home, if you want to describe something that is suddenly everywhere, a new movie, maybe a political candidate during an election, or even a viral meme on your feed, plastered is the exact right word to use.
You could say they plastered the subway with ads for that new horror movie.
Or the city was plastered with vote for Smith signs.
Perfect. It conveys that unmistakable sense of being surrounded.
I really love that. It adds so much texture to a really simple idea, like marketing.
It really does. It elevates the English.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We are moving from a very static, heavy image to something with a lot more kinetic energy.
Let's look at movement.
This brings us to segment 2, and the phrase here is charging around.
Charging around. This is such a fun one to break down.
The context in our source shifts from speed skating over to figure skating. Specifically, the American skater Elisa Liu. And the whole vibe of this section is about artistic expression.
Right. This isn't necessarily about the strict technical competition. It's about the pure joy of movement.
Let me grab the sentence. Here it is. Elisa Liu was charging around the ice to one of her favorite songs just to express her art, not knowing or caring about what medal she would end up getting.
Charging around the ice. Now, I want to really pick this apart because it's a fascinating combination of two very different ideas.
Okay, let's start with just the verb itself. To charge.
To charge.
Mm-hmm.
When I just say that one word to you, what is the very first image that pops into your head?
Honestly, I think of a medieval knight. I think of a huge horse, a long lance, and a full-speed gallop toward an enemy.
Exactly. The origin is military. A charge is a frontal attack. But crucially, a military charge is linear.
Right. You do not charge in zigzags, you don't take a scenic route, you charge straight ahead at the enemy lines.
It implies a vector. High velocity, intense focus, straight line, and ultimate impact.
So that is the charging part. But the phrase in the text is charging around.
And that little preposition, around, completely changes the physics of the situation.
It breaks the line, doesn't it?
It completely shatters the line. Adding around implies multi-directional movement. It implies covering an entire space, left, right, center, back.
So when you combine the two words...
You keep the high velocity, you keep the intense bursting energy of that battlefield charge, but you remove the single forward target. You are applying that intense battle-level energy to the entire surrounding space.
So in this context, Elisa Liu isn't attacking a specific judge. She is attacking the empty space on the ice rink.
Yes, she is filling the entire rink with her energy. It is high speed, it is intense purpose, but it is multi-directional.
It is interesting because if you just said skating around, it sounds so leisurely.
Right. Skating around is what you do on a first date at a public rink.
Exactly. Holding hands, going in a slow, gentle circle while music plays.
But charging around implies she is really tearing up the ice.
Yeah.
She is breathless. She is physically pushing her absolute limits in every direction.
In American English, I feel like this phrase can sometimes feel a bit frantic, can it?
Oh, it absolutely can. It is very often used to describe completely uncontained energy.
Our source mentions toddlers, which is just the perfect image.
It is the universal example of this phrase.
We have all seen a little kid who has just had a giant frosted cupcake at a birthday party.
Their eyes go wide and they just start running. They aren't going anywhere in particular. They are just charging around.
They're just vibrating with sugar energy, practically bouncing off the walls of the living room.
But when we move back to sports, it takes on a much more dominant tone. It becomes about being fully in the zone.
We have a great basketball example here from the text. During the final minutes of the NBA playoffs, LeBron James was charging around the court, completely dominating the game.
See here, charging around implies that ubiquity again. It means he is everywhere at once. He is on offense, he is sprinting back on defense, he is diving for a loose ball on the corner.
He is covering massive amounts of ground.
And he is covering that ground with extreme force. You would never say a player who is just lightly jogging down the court is charging around.
Yeah.
It absolutely requires that heavy, forceful, physical exertion.
It is pure physical dominance. But you know, my absolute favorite example from the source material is the one that honestly stresses me out just reading it out loud.
The kitchen example.
Yes, the Gordon Ramsay example.
Of course. It's perfect.
Let me read it. An hour before the restaurant opened, Gordon Ramsay was charging around the kitchen, shouting at the chefs to finish prepping the food.
I can literally hear the pans clattering when you say that.
I can feel the sweat and the heat of the stoves.
This captures the frantic side of the phrase perfectly. Because think about it, he isn't just walking from station to station with a little clipboard, checking things off calmly.
No. He is moving with explosive, nervous energy. He is pivoting. He is sprinting to the walk-in fridge. He is pointing at the fry station.
And the word around tells us he is visiting every single part of that kitchen space. The sauce station, the grill, the pass where the plates go out.
If he were just standing completely still in the middle of the room and yelling, he would not be charging around. It is the physical movement combined with the intensity that makes it so stressful.
Exactly. It is the kinetic manifestation of extreme pressure.
I feel like I do this exactly when I am running 10 minutes late for work and I cannot find my car keys.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone does.
Yeah.
You are charging around your house, you're turning over sofa cushions, you're checking your coat pockets, running back upstairs to the bedroom, or into the kitchen counter.
It is not efficient movement at all, but it's incredibly high energy.
It's maximum intensity. And really, that is the common thread connecting Elisa Liu, LeBron James, and Gordon Ramsay in these examples. They are all applying absolute maximum effort to occupy and dominate a physical space.
Charging around. It is such a great phrase to add to your vocabulary to describe that chaotic, high-energy state.
Though ideally, for your own stress levels, you want to be charging around the ice, expressing art like Elisa Liu, and not charging around the kitchen screaming like Gordon Ramsay.
Words to live by, for sure. Okay, let's take a collective breath here. We have had the very heavy, suffocating weight of plastered and the frantic high speed of charging around. Now, let's slow things down and look at the heart.
Moving into segment 3.
Segment 3. The word is adoring.
This is such a beautiful, deeply heavy word.
It really is, and it fits the Olympics theme perfectly because, let's be honest, the Olympics is nothing without the fans.
That is very true. The fans make the event.
The context here in our source is the arrival of the athletes in the host city before the games even begin.
The Grand Welcome Committee.
Here is the sentence. When these Olympians were arriving in the host city, thousands of adoring fans waited outside their hotels trying to get a glimpse of them.
Thousands of adoring fans.
Now, you know, we all know the English word love, and we all know the word like. But adore feels like it sits on a much higher shelf.
It sits on the absolute highest shelf. And to really understand why it carries so much emotional weight, we have to look at the history of the word. The etymology here is crucial to understanding the nuance.
So where does it actually come from?
It comes from the ancient Latin word adorare.
And what did that mean to the Romans?
It meant to worship. Very specifically, to speak to pray to, or to completely revere a deity, a god.
Wow. So it wasn't just, hey, I really like you as a person. It was strictly religious.
Strictly religious. It inherently implied a massive hierarchy. You, the mortal, are way down here on earth, and the object of your adoration is way up there in the heavens.
That is a tremendous amount of weight to put on an everyday word.
It is. But, you know, as language evolved over the centuries, the meaning softened and broadened quite a bit. It moved out of the temple and into the home.
So it transitioned from worshiping a literal god to loving a human being.
Yes. It shifted to describe intense human admiration. But, and this is the really important part for the listener to grasp, it never fully lost that ancient flavor of worship.
So it still puts the person you are talking about on a pedestal.
It does. Even today, In modern American English, when we use adoring as an adjective, it implies a level of devotion that goes far beyond normal liking or even normal loving.
You mentioned earlier that it's almost always paired with very specific words in English.
Yes, if you read the news or consume media, you will almost exclusively hear it paired with collective nouns like fans, crowds, or public.
The adoring public, the adoring fans.
Exactly, because modern fandom, in a lot of ways, is arguably our new cultural form of worship.
That is a really deep thought. But it's totally true. When you look at a massive crowd of people waiting outside a hotel for 3 hours in the freezing cold, just for a swimmer or a gymnast to walk by.
They aren't just there to say a casual hello, they're there to witness greatness. They are, in the truest sense of the word, adoring.
We have a really great example from the pop music world in our notes that captures this dynamic perfectly.
The Chappell Roan example.
Yes, exactly. Let me read it. When Chappell Roan stepped onto the festival stage, she looked out at a massive crowd of adoring fans singing every word.
Think deeply about that specific interaction. Those fans aren't just passive consumers standing there with their arms crossed. They are actively singing the words back to her. They are pouring all of their emotional energy toward that stage.
It's a reciprocal act of modern worship.
Exactly. If you just describe them as a crowd of happy fans, you completely lose the intensity of the moment. Happy just means they're having a nice time at the show. Adoring means they would practically die for her.
It implies a profound devotion.
Absolute, unquestioning devotion.
But the word isn't just reserved for crowds of 50,000 people, right? The source material gives us a much more intimate, one-on-one example.
Yes, and this highlights the softer, deeply romantic side of the word.
The look.
The look.
Yeah.
We were talking about the actors Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively.
The royal couple of Hollywood red carpets.
The sentence is, if you watch red carpet interviews, Ryan Reynolds always looks at Blake Lively with this completely adoring expression.
I know exactly the look you mean. It's that moment where he just stops talking mid-sentence and turns and just stares at her.
Like she is literally the only person left in the entire universe.
And that connects right back to the Latin root, doesn't it? He is looking at her like she is a goddess.
Precisely. He is reverent. He is utterly captivated. He isn't just casually looking at his wife. He is adoring her with his eyes.
So whether it is 100,000 screaming music fans at a festival or just one husband standing on a red carpet, the core meaning remains exactly the same.
It is all about elevating the other person. You make yourself small so they can be big. You are the humble observer. They are the shining star.
It is really interesting, though, how we use the verb form adore pretty casually in everyday speech now. Like someone might say, oh my gosh, I adore that dress you're wearing, or I absolutely adore sushi.
We do that all the time. We dilute the verb.
But the adjective adoring seems to have really kept its dignity over the years. Like, you would never say, I gave the spicy tuna sushi an adoring look.
No, you really wouldn't. That would be incredibly weird. Adoring is almost exclusively reserved for human beings, or maybe in some cases pets.
Pets. Yes, definitely pets.
You might say, my dog sat by the table and looked up at me with adoring eyes.
Usually because you are holding a piece of cheese.
True, but to the dog, you are the god of the house. You are the divine provider of the cheese. So the Latin etymology actually still holds up perfectly.
That is fantastic. It really brings home the emotional intensity of the Olympics, too. You have the athletes physically charging around to perform at their peak, the media networks aggressively plastering their faces everywhere, and the thousands of fans in the stands adoring them.
It really is the complete high-stakes ecosystem of the Olympic Games, perfectly captured in just 3 phrases.
So let's bring this all together for everyone listening. What does this all mean for you and your English vocabulary?
Well, we have unpacked 3 very distinct vibes in this episode today.
We started things off with the heavyweight of plastered,
which is all about unavoidable visibility, covering space completely, total visual domination, like how NBC plastered the screen with Jordan Stolz or Apple plastered Times Square.
Then we shifted to the frantic energy of charging around,
which is all about kinetic energy. High speed, multi-directional physical movement can be a bit frantic or it can be completely dominant. Alyssa Liu charging around the ice, LeBron James charging around the court, or Gordon Ramsay charging around a busy kitchen.
And finally, we slowed down with adoring,
which is all about profound emotion, deep, deep devotion, rooted historically in religious worship, that powerful connection between the humble fan and the elevated idol.
These words are just fantastic tools to add to your English toolkit. And as we've shown, they aren't just for talking about the Olympics.
Not at all. They are incredibly versatile.
You can absolutely use them at work. You could say, the boss was charging around the office this morning looking for those reports.
You can use them for everyday marketing. We really need to plaster the neighborhood with flyers for the bake sale.
You can use them for personal relationships. He grew up in a very adoring family.
They work everywhere because ultimately they describe very universal human experiences. The feeling of being visually overwhelmed, the feeling of being incredibly busy and frantic, and the feeling of being deeply in love.
Before we sign off today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we talked a lot about adoring, coming directly from religious worship, and we talked about plastering images everywhere, sort of like putting up religious icons in a temple.
Yes, the language is very elevated.
It makes you wonder. We use all this deeply religious, godlike language to describe our modern celebrities and our star athletes. Does that fundamental language change how we end up treating them?
That is a very provocative question.
Do we subconsciously expect these athletes to be perfectly flawless because we use words like adoring to describe our relationship with them? And then do we punish them far more harshly when they inevitably turn out to be just regular human beings who make mistakes?
It's a great point. We build them up to be literally like gods with our everyday language, so perhaps we are way too harsh when they eventually fall off that pedestal.
Something to really think about the next time you are walking down the street and you see a completely plastered billboard of a famous athlete and you feel that adoring pull in your chest.
Indeed. The language we use really shapes how we see the people around us.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Chattable.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Go out there, practice these new words, have fun, and be proud.